Hi everyone, this is William from the Headphone Experience. I'm here tonight with my first impressions of the topping E50 Dac and L50 amp, and these did come together as a stack, so that's the way I'm going to review these, as a stack. These were loaned to me by Apos Audio, and these currently sell. You can buy them either separate or together as a stack. From Apos, and the E50 Dac currently goes for $199, and that would be in US dollars, and the L50 amp currently goes for $169, or you can buy the stack combined together for $369, which is the price of the two added together. But you do get an RCA Apos Flow connection cable, single-ended cable to connect the two for that price. Or for another, what would that be, $50 for $409, $40 actually. For $40 more, instead of the RCA cable, you can get an Apos Flow balance cable that connects the two of these together. So you've got some options there, one, the other, both, and both with an RCA single-ended cable or both with a balance cable. And so anyway, I'll talk about the DAC a little bit first here. And I did want to review this because a few years ago, I guess it's been about 3 years ago, I reviewed the E50 Dac. And I was really impressed with the sound quality from that DAC. It was just outstanding clarity and detail. It was only about half as big as this, but looked very similar. And I never did get a chance to review the L30 amp because they were having problems with that at that time. I guess there was some returns, some came back that had failed. So anyway, that was right around the time I was reviewing the amp, and they never did get the DAC, and they never did get the amp to me. So this time I requested the two together as a stack, and like I said, that's the way I'm going to review these, as a stack. So anyway, this DAC, and you can see the two behind me in the picture here, a bigger version of it. This has 3 digital inputs, which would be USB, optical, and coax, and has 2 analog outputs, which would be RCA single-ended on the rear, and 6.3 TRS balanced on the rear. And this is actually, these are the first amp DACs or any units that I've reviewed with that type of balanced connection. iFi has gone to pretty much the 4.4 millimeter Pentacon, which saves a lot of room and actually takes up a lot less space than this, but this is quite a bit smaller than full-size XLR connections, which would be impossible on an amp and DAC this size. So I'll talk about that a little bit more in a few minutes. Topping claims a signal-to-noise ratio of 124 decibels, and crosstalk of 130 decibels of separation. And the higher that number, the crosstalk, the wider, usually the wider the soundstage sounds. It's just, that's completely separating the two channels by 130 decibels. You're not going to hear anything out of one channel that was meant to be in the other channel. So that just gives you a wider, more expansive soundstage than something that measures at a lower number on the crosstalk. So anyway, this is a DAC with a built-in preamp. Does come with a remote, and you can control the volume and the inputs and several other things with the remote. And the remote is your standard topping remote that comes with pretty much everything topping. And I'll roll in and show you this a little closer, and you can't really see much on the front. There is a power button here, and I guess I don't have a photo right now of this lit up. It's actually has big, bright, I guess they're yellow or orange numbers. I'm colorblind, I can't really see. But anyway, the display is really large on this, and we'll go ahead and show you the back. You've got your, we'll start out with the power supply. Okay, this runs off of 5 volts DC, and this does come with a USB cable that is type A on one end, and then it has the plug to plug into this for the 5 volts DC. Well, I've got a little bit of a concern here, because I'll show you the amp here. The amp has the same plug on it, exactly the same, except the amp runs off of 15 volts. Is it 15? Yeah, 15 volts AC. And that comes with a substantial transformer that plugs into your wall. It's large and it's heavy, and but my concern is it being the same plug, because it would be pretty easy to mess up the two, because they're basically the same looking wire with the same plug, and if you've got them plugged in behind your rack or something. And I'm assuming that if you plug 5 volts DC into 15, the amp that should get 5 or 15 volts AC, that could potentially cause damage putting DC into it, but I'm assuming that there would be even more danger of accidentally plugging 15 volts AC into the DAC that's meant to get 5 volts DC. So I wish they would have put a different type plug on there, or something different, so you couldn't accidentally do it. There may be protection circuits that protect against any damage if you did accidentally plug it in to the wrong one, but I'm not going to try and find out, because I don't want to do damage to this. But anyway, that just kind of comes across, it's a little strange to me that they set it up that way. So anyway, you've got your power supply in, you've got your USB jack, your optical, and your coax, and then you've got your RCA outputs, and these are preamp. You can control the volume with the remote, and then you've got your balanced outputs. And this is, like I said earlier, the first time I've seen units use this. It's a 6.3 millimeter TRS, like the same as a 1/4 inch headphone jack. So I didn't have any cables like that. I got these as a, the two together, but they didn't come with the cable RCA or balance. So originally, when I first got this a couple weeks ago, I just used a balance or a RCA cable, but I was thinking about it. And even though I don't have any cables with 1/4 inch headphone plugs on each end, I did have a couple of headphone cables that were the same. They were 3.5 millimeter TRS on each end. So I thought about it. I'm like, well, I've got a bunch of 3.5 to 6.3 millimeter adapters, and I put an adapter on both ends of the headphone cables and tried that, and it seems to work fine. I mean, it's probably not the ideal setup, because I don't think they have much as far as shielding, but they're pretty short cables, and I just kind of tucked them in behind the units, and it works real well. So I am able to try the balance, but this is my first impressions, and before I do the my full review of this, I'll try to get a hold of some better cables to use the balanced output of the DAC to the balanced input of the amp. So anyway, so that basically covers the back of this, and then I want to talk about the amp a little bit. And this headphone amp has 2 analog inputs, and that would be RCA single-ended, and once again the 6.3 TRS balanced inputs. And it has 2 outputs, which would be your 6.3 millimeter and full-size 4-pin XLR on the front. And it has a 3-stage gain control, low, medium, and high, and a switch on the front to switch from your RCA input to your balanced output or turn the unit off. And as far as power, topping claims, I think it's 3,500 milliwatts into 16 ohms, but I looked until I found what it was into 32 ohms. I didn't know if it was only half of that, but it turns out this amp puts out 2,800 milliwatts or 2.8 watts into 32 ohms, and that's at 0.1% distortion. So this thing's got some pretty serious power. I mean, 2.8 watts into 32 ohms is enough for just about any headphone, other than maybe some of the very hardest to drive, like the maybe the HE6 or something from Hi-Fi Man. But as far as any of the Hi-Fi Man planar magnetic headphones I have, this has absolutely no problem. In fact, most of them I'm using the medium gain on it. So anyway, we'll roll in and show you the front of this, a close-up. You've got your on-off switch, and this is your single-ended or balanced inputs. Then you've got your 3-stage gain, your 4-pin full-size XLR, your 6.3 millimeter single-ended headphone, and then your volume knob. And on the back, once again, you've got your 15-volt AC input, and that, like I said, does come with a pretty big, solid, heavy AC transformer. And then your balanced out input, 6.3 millimeter TRS. And then this does have pass-through also. If it's turned off, the signal will pass straight through it. And you can just, use the balance control on the volume control on your DAC. But anyway, so these are your inputs here, and then these are your outputs here. No, I'm sorry, these are your inputs, and then it has outputs that pass the signal through it. So anyway, as far as my review, and like I said, this is just my first impressions. I've had this maybe about a week and a half, and I've done quite a bit of listening to it. And last night I actually listened to this for probably 2 or 3 hours and did compare it to one of my other amp DACs. And so far I'm using the coaxial input into the DAC, and I'm running a Cambridge Audio CD transport, and obviously just using it as a transport, delivering a digital signal, and then using the built-in DAC here into the amp hooked together. And as far as headphones, so far I've used the Hi-Fi Man HE400 SE, which is a very power-hungry headphone, as more of a power test. And the amp does just fine on high gain with that. And then as far as listening, I started out with the Ananda Stealth from Hi-Fi Man, and last night I listened to this amp DAC combination for a couple hours with the $3,500 Hi-Fi Man HE1000 SE. And if there's any problems with the sound of an amp or DAC, that headphone will reveal it. I mean, it's just an extremely revealing headphone. So anyway, getting into the sound, I would describe the tone balance as basically neutral, very flat, very linear, no emphasis anywhere, with just a slight bit of warmth in the mid-range. Not some of the topping equipment, some of their DACs, some of their amps are a little bit on the cool, little bit on the dry side. That was kind of an issue I had with the what's their top of the line DAC, the D90 SE. I just thought it was I wish it would have been slightly warmer. But anyway, I would say these together as a combination, as a stack, are slightly on the warm side of neutral. And I really like it that way. It's right where I prefer my equipment to be lately. The clarity and detail out of both of these just seems to be outstanding. And I will tell you, I did look up the measurements of this DAC. And once again, topping, their DACs just measure absolutely outstanding. They're right at, what is that, Audio Science Review or whatever that does all these measurements, and out of a couple hundred DACs, this thing is right up at the top. In fact, I was really surprised to see that this measures even better than the topping D70S MQA, which happens to be my favorite topping DAC, and it's just slightly below, like 1 or 2 points below the D90 SE. Which, like I said, is a little on the cool side for me, but extremely clean and detailed. So this amp is this DAC is one of the best measuring DACs you can buy at only what, $199. So that's why I wanted to review these. It just seems to be outstanding equipment for the price. So like I said, outstanding clarity and detail. The sound stage is wide, very wide. Very good separation of the instruments and different, voices, whatever. Every sound has its own location, and it has pretty good depth. But I haven't heard a Delta Sigma type DAC that has quite the depth of some of the R2R type DACs I've heard. So compared to the R2R DACs, not quite the depth, but very good depth for Delta Sigma DAC. And, the fact is everyone knows Delta Sigma DACs just measure better, have a cleaner sound. But I really do like R2R DACs. I like that depth, that sound a little more three-dimensional to me. But anyway, and then as far as power, I was, when I was using the Ananda Stealth and the HE1000 SE, I was only using medium gain on this, and the volume knob was at like maybe 10 o'clock or so, and if I turned it up to high gain, I was barely at 9 o'clock on the volume knob with those two. And then the more power hungry HE400 SE, this has plenty of power for that, up on high gain. It's a little lacking on low or medium gain. Doesn't sound real dynamic, but on high gain it sounds very good, and this will take that headphone to its full potential. So I did do a brief comparison, and I normally don't do a lot of comparisons in my first impressions, but I've been trying to do just one quick comparison lately with something that I'm very familiar with, just to make sure that there's something that I'm not missing, because my brain will adjust very quickly to the different sounds of different headphones, to different amps, different DACs or whatever. And obviously headphones have a lot more differences from one to another than DACs or amps, but I like to do at least one quick comparison just to make sure I'm not overlooking something. So I did compare this to the Benchmark DAC 1. And the Benchmark DAC 1 was my first headphone amp. It's a combination amp DAC. And I bought that in 2012, and that was $1,000 then. Okay, and that was considered state of the art. I mean, it was rated Class A by Stereophile magazine. It measures, Benchmark measure extremely well, all that. And that was my reference DAC amp for the first couple of years of doing reviews. So, it's still a very good amp DAC, very competitive. But what I found out is this amp DAC stack has a very similar sound to the Benchmark. Very clean, very detailed, nice wide sound stage, and just a hint of warmth in the mid-range. And like I said, I didn't do extensive comparison. It can sometimes take me a couple hours of switching back and forth to hear differences between amps or DACs. But, or a difference that I can explain in words. I might hear the difference, but it might take me a while to really understand what the difference is. So anyway, yeah, it's got a similar sound to what was considered one of the best amp DACs you could get 10 years ago for $1,000. And you can get these as a stack, the two of them, with a cable to connect them for $369. So I'm really impressed by the sound of this thing for the money. So anyway, and the Benchmark, I think, is rated at 1.25 watts per channel into 32 ohms, and this is 2.8 watts per channel into 32 ohms. So this actually has more than twice the power of the Benchmark. So, like I said, just seems like a lot of amp and DAC for the money to me. And I realize, $369 for the pair, that's getting up there. That's getting out of the budget range up into mid-fi, but you're definitely getting at least a mid-fi, if not a high-end sound out of these. So, in my opinion, well worth it. So, Anyway, this was just my first impressions. I'm going to try to get a full review out in a reasonable amount of time. And the things I've got on hand right now to compare is I still have that E50 Dac that I reviewed like 3 years ago. I liked it so well that I did buy it from APOS. So I'm going to compare this DAC directly to the E30, which looks the same but about half the size, and see how the two compare, see if there's a noticeable difference in the two. And then I've got the topping D70S MQA, which is quite a bit more expensive. That was a $650 DAC. And I actually preferred that DAC to the $900 D90 or SC. But anyway, I love the D70S, and I'm going to compare this to that, see how this holds up against that. And according to audio science reviews, whatever they're called, this actually measures better than the D70. And then as a stack, I'm going to give this a comparison to the less expensive iFi Zen DAC, which is a combination amp DAC, but the more expensive Hi-Fi Man EF400. So I want to see how this holds up. It doesn't have quite the power, but it has, what I like about this, it has your 3 different digital inputs, where the Hi-Fi Man only has the one, just the USB. So I'll have to do the comparisons on my desk here where I've got USB inputs. But so I'm going to compare this stack to the Hi-Fi Man EF400. And then I'm going to jump up, and I've still got the Burson Conductor 3 reference amp DAC here. And I realize that's about 4 times the price, but I want to see how that holds up to, or how this stack holds up to that, which is still my reference amp DAC. I mean, the best amp DAC combination I've heard so far. So anyway, I'm going to wrap this up. I'll be back in about a month with my full review, but you never know. Work is slow right now because we haven't got any rain in about 5 weeks, but if we do get some heavy rain, work will pick up. So I can't give you a for sure time, and I do have about 4 or 5 full reviews I need to get out before I get back to this. So anyway, I'll try to get back soon with my full review and let you know, and I'll try it with some different headphones. Make sure it works well with high impedance headphones like the 300 ohm ZMF Atrium, and try it with a couple other, hard to drive headphones. But I think this thing's got plenty of power. I don't think that's going to be an issue. Well, not the DAC, but the amp has plenty of power. So anyway, if this review helped you, please give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't already. I hit 4,000 subscribers just today, so I thank all of you that have supported my channel by watching my videos and subscribing. And the Headphone Experience on Facebook is up to almost 24,000 members. You're all welcome over there. So anyway, once again, thanks for watching my video.